Good afternoon, everybody. This is Greg from IPI Solutions. I'm the host of this webinar. It is a repeat from February the 14th, and there was quite a few of you that couldn't make it on the 14th and asked to see if we could do a rerun. So here's the rerun, and thank you for your interest. It is about managing change, revision control within our applications, VIPI with Visual Fair, and also the failure modes and effects analysis, best practice, and use of the Visual FMEA tool. So again, welcome and thank you for your interest. We did have overwhelming requests from attendees to join. And still, even for this repeat today, there's quite a few of you on the line, and I guess it's best to say good morning, good afternoon and good evening, depending on where you are in the world with the time zone. Just a polite request. Some of you have joined in with phones, others haven't. If I could just ask for you to place your phones on mute. This is just to avoid any background noise, disruption for others. Would be most appreciated. Thank you. And if during the WebEx you feel you've got further questions to ask, or you want a more you require a more detailed WebEx from one of the IPI staff, then please take note of that email address there, app-sales@ipisolutions.co.uk. Fire off to that. Someone will be able to pick that up, get back to you, and deal with your requests. So the webinar content, I'm going to use the first half an hour just to go over our Visual FMEA use and best practice. The tool itself, you will see, it brings a standard approach to actually carrying out the procedure for FMEA and actually creating the layout that you're used to seeing with an FMEA. Some of the functionality in there I will also show. There's a library function there, so think about your common business processes that exist, the risks associated with those. We can very easily pull those in and efficiently create a process FMEA, and an output from that, because at the same time as you map in the operations and process steps, we can also display a process flow. So I'll show you how all that happens. The second half, I'm going to introduce Visual Fair, but more importantly a drawing comparison tool that we've created. I'll use this to actually identify some unique changes that may have happened between different revision of drawings. I'll also try and build in an approach should there be engineering change notes or drawing change notes that have been issued, and how you could take one of those, balloon it up, and make reference back to your original drawing. And then finally, just a few minutes, just introducing one of our latest development activities where we can manage the change and spot revisions of parts within assemblies. That's all within our advanced repository, which is an additional application but is only operational on our enterprise license with SQL running in the background. So here at IPI we develop applications. There you can see are some of them. You'll find more information on the internet as well. But the first one I want to introduce is Visual FMEA. So let me just now open up our VIPI. And with this part that I've got located in my repository, I'm going to run Visual FMEA. So this is the first screen you get with Visual FMEA. It's the user interface. Now notice nothing's been done in this at the moment. Before I even go ahead and follow the first instruction, which we've tried to give as a clue as to how to get started, let me just pull up an Excel example of a failure mode effect analysis layout. Hopefully all of you may have already seen this type of layout. It's in Excel. Excel is probably the predominant way in which you present an FMEA. But from a user's point of view, actually populating it, it can become quite cumbersome and difficult. You know, what rows am I merging? How am I interpreting the relationship between potential failure modes and effects, the causes of the potential failure mode, and how can I prevent or detect that cause? So we want to take a step back and actually think about the process, the user interface. So our user interface has been presented in a way that you don't have to be an experienced guru in FMEAs to actually create them. You will see as I start to use it that the relationship becomes quite apparent, and you can then understand the linkages between everything that we do. So let's take a look at this. Right click to add an operation. So if I right click, I can see there then I've got a menu that says add operation. Now straight away I'm being presented with operation number 10. That's because I've set my unique report style to always number in integers of 10. So even if I right mouse click again and add another operation, you'll see it's jumped then to operation 20. So here I'm just writing in brief descriptions of the operations. So I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of the description, but there you get a feel for 3 operations that I've just created. Against these operations, if I highlight it, the right mouse click is always the tool used to actually present you with an option of what it is you want to do next. So I might want to break this operation 10 down into process steps. So by adding a process step, you can see there I'm adding an integer of 1. And what is that? Well, let's say it's release material, and symbols. You've got a choice of symbols. You can create symbols of your own, all within the site configuration that comes with part of the software. So that might be let's see that as a move. And then operation 20, I'm going to jump to and break this down to load material. Let's say that's a move. I'm going to add another process step here, which is actually cutting the tube. And finally I'll just add a third one, which may be unload and inspect. So that might be a move and an inspect operation at the same time. Now I think you can see now the right mouse click taking effect, how easy it is to actually just pull those off. So let's just take this process step here for cutting the tube, because I really want to drill down into these process steps. But more importantly here, what is the characteristic of that cut tube? What am I getting at the end of it? Well, I'm going to say I'm getting a product, and the product being length. Now notice I've got 3 values to choose from. That's because I've already built these into my application of common product characteristics. You can type your own in there, but you know, this makes it a lot easier for myself to actually go through the process of understanding and applying the characteristic. So there I've got length. It's against the length, which is the characteristic, that I can apply potential failure modes. So what is the potential failure mode of length? Well, I think there's a couple. There's actually one that may be that you've cut it too short, and if I add another one, you could then say that you've actually cut it too long. Now the severity, when we look at those in terms of an effect, could be that too short is potentially more severe to us. We can't recover it, so we're going to say that that could be scrap. Whereas if I apply a cause excuse me, for it being too long, it may be, let's just delete that. I should have added a effect. The effect being that we can rework something that's too long. And the severity to me in an organisation is 3, whereas when I chose the scrap I applied a value of 7. Automatically that was applied because it knew related to scrap that I had there a severity rating of 7. But again, in your organisation you can choose what value you want to apply. Now, things to consider here in this FMEA. I'm doing this obviously as a demonstration, but you in organisations should really get a team together. I think it's important you get teams of people that have got knowledge of the intricate levels of the process that take place. With that you can pick their brains, you can pick their knowledge. They understand what takes place. They may understand the risks associated as well. But also walk it, actually get out there and see it, because visually you may identify some risks that you wouldn't normally associate when you just sat at your desk trying to put together an FMEA. So I'm building up a relationship here. I've already gone that I've cut the tube. The characteristic is that it's length. I've cut it too short. The effect of that is scrap, and a cause could be that it was a setup error. So if I apply that, then you'll see there that my occurrence, because in my organisation I've got a setup error that occurs probably half per 1,000 setups that I do. But not only have I got a cause for setup error, maybe there's opportunity there for machine error as well. So very simply now, the right mouse click is building up relationships, and you can begin to see that I've got causes of this bar being cut too short. Against these causes, have I got anything in place to actually detect or prevent it from happening? Well, maybe I haven't got anything to detect it, but prevention in terms of a machine error, maybe I've got weekly checks. And as an organisation, as a team, we're going to say that that's quite moderate in terms of preventing it. And you'll see along the bottom now that the link between this branch that I've got, cut tube, which is length, being too short, the effect of which is scrap, caused by the machine error, and I've only got weekly checks in place to detect or prevent that from happening, is giving me an RPM value of 210. Now, you have to decide, or your customer may invoke certain RPM values to which you have to do something about it. Now, there's no point saying, right, I'm going to tackle everything over 100, because you might have 100 risks over 100. You can't manage all of those. Maybe then you need to apply some Pareto against it. Maybe you want the top 3 that are over 100 to be identified as being listed as I must take an action against it. So that's how I've got mine set up, and again it's all customizable, but I'm saying anything over 100, but the top 3 that are over 100 I must take an action against. That's why that's ticked. And if I was to place my cursor inside this RPM value, it opens up the properties box for me to then identify, well, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to review the weekly checks. Who's going to be responsible for it? So let's make somebody responsible, and he's got 2 weeks to do it. We come back in 2 weeks, we revisit it as a team, because individuals or departments may have had actions placed on them. What actions were taken? Well, there was a daily check introduced, And from our experience now, we've given it a little bit of time to run, we can see that that daily check has not affected the severity. We still know that it being scrap is going to be 7. But we have reduced the occurrence. There's objective evidence to suggest we're doing that, and hopefully we've reduced the detection value. In turn, the new RPN that's been calculated is there. Now, you've seen me use this obviously there with the right mouse click and building all this relationship up. But where's that actually going? How is it actually being presented? Well, just as I started with in the Excel document, you'll see that if I open up my report builder now within the Visual FMEA and I choose the actual FMEA script that I want, so there it is, you'll see there that the data is populated right across through to the actions that are taken. Now, it doesn't matter what script I choose, you've done the data once. So even if I wanted to change that to, let's give a Rolls-Royce example, you'll see it populates with the data. And some of this other information, if it's looking for part number, if I had populate a part number, etc., it could all be mapped to populate. So the flexibility of this tool is one tool, one process, one approach, but the number of customers that you have as suppliers to your OEMs, you can effectively generate the outputs. So once again, FMEA script, and it's built. Now, I mentioned to you when I introduced the slides about a library function, because this is all well and good you actually producing this FMEA for the first time, but actually there's some processes, some operations in my organisation that have got the same associated risks no matter what the product is that goes through it, typically like cleaning. Now, I've got a library function, and if I just open this library function up and just dock it, you'll see I've already got some operations that I've built up. Now, it could be that what I want to do to this clean operation is update to the PFMEA. So I choose Op30, update, and you'll see straight away now that it's added all the breakdown of those processes, associated characteristics, the potential failure modes, the effects, and the causes. And that's just by using my library function. And again, if I wanted now to add continuously to it and build it up, I can choose 40, add to the PFMEA, 50, add to the PFMEA, and 60. And that now, because they were common operations, if I go back to my output and say rebuild the report with the data, you see now I've got 10, 20 was the one that I did, 30 now because I pulled it from the library, and we just add 40, 50 and 60 that was descriptions of the operations. I never took it any further in my examples. So what can you do with that? Well, we've given the opportunity now to actually save that as an Excel file. So you've got the full flexibility of Excel. You could save it to your desktop. What do you want to call it? You may save that as a finished FMEA at a particular date, so that you know that's what it was. You could then use the tool again in future time, go through some of the actions, reduce some of these RPNs, save again as an Excel file in your organisation, and you're building up some history of that control with the FMEA. So very quickly and clearly there, it's efficient, it's a standard approach. You don't have to be an FMEA expert to use it. You can see the relationship as it builds up. It's just a simple right mouse click on whatever heading you've got, and then associated to that, what is it you want to add again, and then you see it as it builds up. So once again, team effort, try and do it as a team. You'll get a better FMEA knowledge output. It's a live document, it's a tool at the end of the day, an improvement tool a very key improvement tool for your organisation if used correctly. And you've got the full power there of Excel in the output, and depending on what customer requirement in terms of the layout, you've got full control over just populating this data into that. Now, as a side spin-off from this, you can see that I've actually got operation numbers listed and process steps created. So I could quite easily change my script to a process flow, and in doing so I quickly get a breakdown of the operation number, the description, the process step breakdown, a description, and any symbols that I've applied. And that again runs true for changing it. Again, there's a Rolls-Royce one that I put together, but they use different symbols without the colours. That doesn't matter, because providing you set your report style up, you can pull these symbols in with the necessary description, so that when you use the tool you would be choosing and selecting that you've got a movement there with a transport, you'd have it as a blank D. And that's all fully customizable in site configuration by you as a user. So that's the introduction there to our Visual FMEA tool. It does offer that flexibility and unique, efficient creation of the FMEA. You've got it applied against operations. It's important to understand here, look, operations 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60 all exist. So should I then want to create a control plan, I will have these operations available to choose from and apply into a control plan. That's not something I'm going to look at today, but it may be a future webinar that we present in terms of control plans. And the future, in terms of our development, we're currently investigating and looking at the link between a characteristic, which is described there as length, and then using that in the control plan, because we have a process or product characteristic. And once we've established that link, we can very soon, quickly, efficiently begin to understand what features on a drawing are associated to applicable high risk priority numbers. And that's continued development that we're doing, that we'll look to release later in the year. Okay, let me just close that application down. And just pull back our slides, because you've seen me go through Visual FMEA. I now want to introduce to you Visual FAIR and the use of Visual FAIR in managing the change and revision control. So let me launch Visual FAIR against this part that I've got pre-selected there. So I've got a part. I've already got it ballooned up, but how efficient are you at seeing that you've actually captured every requirement on the drawing? A tool that's quite useful here, which you'll see me use quite a bit, is this filter tool. And what I want to do is actually show me on the drawing where I've missed a feature. So you can see how that's applying a white mark out there. It makes it less busy, and then by hiding the balloons, now I can see a feature there that I've missed. So if I want to, the method that I use to actually mark it up is to use a numeric markup, and I can capture that requirement there. It's listed as 40, but actually I want that to become number 13 because I want to slot it in. So I can very easily renumber that 13, and that's renumbered everything else. And then just so you see the actual tool and how you capture the requirements, we would open that up. We would use optical character recognition that's built in, and then build up the actual requirement, save and close. Now this as a drawing is at revision A. We can see that. What I want to introduce is replacing this drawing with revision B. But actually I want to do a little bit more than that. I want to know whether something has changed or been added to revision B drawing that's not on this revision A drawing. So the tool I'm going to go through in particular here is this replace. So you go off and locate your drawing. So here I'm going to find my revision B drawing. There it is. I'll open it. It's presenting me now with the replace image wizard. So here I'm going to select resize and rotate. So for revision A, what I want to do is stretch this grey box with the red border to the parameters of the image, which was drawing A, and do the same for the revision B. This tool ensures that these markups you see behind the wizard remain in the same place. They're scaled accordingly depending on the sizes. But the first tool I'm going to look at here is compare. So this now has just built up a comparison, and it's identifying in green what is new on the revision B drawing that was not on the revision A drawing, and that's identifying a difference. I can choose to actually view it as a composite image, so I'll see the black and white, but I'll also see the green being that is new. Now you're perfectly entitled to print that out. Maybe you want to print it out, maybe you want to use it in your organisation, maybe you want to save it. Save it, there we go. Where do you want to save it? And that might be a drawing change rev B of features that are identified, because you might want to even include that in your first article inspection report, in which case, because I've saved it now as a file, I can then go off and attach that into my additional attachments. So now that I understand where these new requirements are, if I just close that image, it takes me back to the replace wizard, and I say OK. The tool itself now will go through the actual replacement of revision B, which was originally revision A. So we can see these new requirements, but we also had a tool that identified them for us as well. But I actually marked up my first one there to cover revision A. So I know that that's revision B, so if I just move that down, you'll see there that the reason I'm doing that is because something else that might be pretty useful is to identify what has changed in a form. So this form I've got actually gives me what was the requirement as on the previous drawing revision. That's what's defined behind that markup. But in this column I'm actually seeing a view of the actual image off the drawing itself. And for me, I've just moved feature number 1 down to cover this text behind the markup, and that is allowing me now to see that that's at revision B, December 2009. It isn't a match, so what I can do, I can go back into my properties and I can change that from revision B to December 2009. I can see that from the revision change report that it's a match, and I know now that as I move on with a AS9102 Form 3 that I've got that exact requirement that is for this drawing. So let me just mark these requirements up, because I want to show you potentially moving on with a revision change that could be at revision C. But let me first of all just go through this. So there we have some markups, a note, requirement, holes again, and this is nice because providing I know how to do it, I can actually quickly create a markup that is identified there. And again, you can use the filter, what filter, show missed features, and there you get, ensure that you've actually marked all those up. Let's just close that down. Now, what I'm keen on doing now is identifying these features and building the requirements up, but taking an exception to them. Because just as I did on this feature number 1, I created a new one. But if I go to the advanced here and take an exception, that gives me the potential to filter this drawing even further. And the filter being that actually just show me those features that I've taken an exception to. So here comes now you actually doing a partial FAI. You only want to include on Form 3 those features that are new on this revision. So the filter tool offers you that capability. There I'm just pulling through feature number 1. But if I was to progress through this drawing and set the requirements, so here I'm going to take an exception to it. I'm going to build the requirement up. So there, paste, set the requirement, and then proceed on to the next one. It just so happens I've got some predefined requirements already here. That's a drawing note, so there I can capture the note, I can set that to non-numeric, and I can paste that. If I go to the advanced and take an exception to it, the same for that first one that I did, and again take an exception, pull this through, oh, there it's flagging up that I need a nominal, so there's my nominal plane. And here again I've got this requirement which I can paste, the diameter, and if I take an exception to that, here I'll just quickly just pull through 4 places into a bit there, and again requirement, exception, and then finally this one we will do as x45 degree, and again in 4 places, and take an exception to that. So that's how I've gone round marking that up. But notice those new ones I took an exception to, and the reason I've done that is because now if I was to apply the filter that says show me a drawing of those features that I've taken exception to, and there they are, and in my part properties I could say that that's a partial FAI, and the reason being it's gone to revision B, and a Form 1 I would get the unique part dataset information, and the reason for the partial FAI that it's gone to revision B, and I would now have a Form 3 that is being displayed with just those requirements that are on my partial FAI. Again, you see me renumber at the beginning. I renumbered 1 to 13. I can renumber all these if you wanted to slot them into sequence on the drawing. That's the full capability of the software that it offers. But there, if I reset the filter, I'm back to my initial drawing now at revision B. And again, this change report analysis gives you just an example. It's just another flavour for something that you can use to analyse what has changed. And that, I identified that one there with feature number 1. But let's go a little bit further now and just take a look at another tool we can use. That form really plays its part now. If I was to go to replacing this now with a revision C drawing, so if I find the drawing that is at revision C and open it, I still want to use the compare tool because I want to know exactly, is there anything that I can visually see that the software can identify on the image as something changing. So we go through this, I ask it to compare, and it's going to display something that may be different on the drawing. So straight away we can see that it's identifying there that C is different, and there's something happening in the middle here. So if I look at the composite build, I might be able to identify a particular requirement on the drawing that where that change is happening. It's somewhere here, something to do with that diameter. So do you want to save it? You can do. Do you want to print it? It's up to you. Let's just close that down as a tool and go through this replace. And now that that's brought in revision C, you'll see that what I'm going to use is this revision change report analysis, because it gives me the requirement that was previously defined as the markup, and then it gives me the new markup itself. Now feature number 1, look, I didn't move, but as soon as I move it, you will see that gives me now, I'll refresh that, the image that is C, January 2013. I also had something taking place on the drawing that was round about here. So feature number 9, look, I'm going to look at this revision change report analysis and see that actually on my previous revision it was 0.900, on my new drawing it's 0.915. I've got that from the image. So those two I can tackle, I can go into, I can change that requirement to Rev C, January 2013. I can also locate this diameter, and again there I can change it to 915, and I go to my advanced and take an exception to it, because along with the others maybe I want to now include that so that it's part of the filter, and if I was to apply that filter just for the exception, you'll see there that it becomes part of it and it's included as part of the filter on that form 3. So you begin to see now how I'm showing you tools in Visual Fair that you can use to identify and manage changes and revisions. But what about engineering change notes? Well, why not pull them in as a drawing? There's nothing stopping you attaching any kind of image. So what if I have been given an engineering change note from my customer? Well, let's go and grab it. Let's open it up. Let's take a look at it, because surely that's going to indicate what is changing. They don't necessarily have to give you a drawing with requirements that have changed. So this engineering change note is identifying that this part, that revision, we've got some changes to datum C and datum A. What I want to do is make use here of our reference type markup. So if I just quickly mark these two requirements up that are listed on this engineering change note, it's saying that datum C outside diameter of that has now got a new tolerance applied. But where is that requirement on the actual drawing? Well, if I look for datum C, I can see that that diameter is feature number 2. So I'm going to reference this back to feature number 2. Save and close. We get a nice identity there, feature number 2. But more importantly, what that is allowing me to do is, if I double left mouse click on it now, I'm actually opening up feature number 2 from the drawing and from the engineering change note. You'll see there, look, if I go previous, you'll see feature number 2 as the requirement, which is 1.078, but still I'm on feature number 2, which is the referenced markup, and now I'm seeing the note from the actual requirement. I'll take an exception to it, I go to my requirement, and I can actually change this. It's got a new tolerance applied of 0.002. So let's just see, have I got that? No, but we can go in there and change it, and by saving and closing that now, I've just acknowledged that. And you might even want to use your comments. You could go to comments and reference engineering change note IPI 654321, giving you full closure there on the form 3 that is feature number 2 with a requirement, and you're referencing that engineering change note, and that marked up engineering change note can be included as part of your finished first article inspection report as well. Let's just go through that again so you understand. This one here, look, we're looking at datum A, so we need to identify where that is. There's a internal diameter there, so it's feature number 22. So I'm going to reference this one to feature number 22, and all I'm using there was a double left mouse click to reference it. And now that it's become referenced, if I double left mouse click again, I open up the markup region properties for feature number 22. I can go to my advanced, I can take an exception, I can go to the requirement, and I can physically change the upper limit to 618 and the lower limit to 603, and it's all referenced to engineering change note 654321. If I apply my filter again, just show me those features that I've taken an exception to. Because I took an exception, they've become part of it. And if I look at form 3 with that partial, I've now got 22 reference a change note to reference a change note. And just to export that to PDF can take place, and you've got what it is you want to include. So if we include everything and then export it, where do you want to save it, what do you want to save it as? Let's just indicate it as a ref change. And the software, if you're aware of Visual Fair, it's got a built-in PDF writer, so it's building its PDF report now with all its documents that I've created or attached. I've chosen where to save that, so now that I've saved it and it's written that, I will go and locate it. So I saved it to my desktop, and I saved it as a rev change. So there we've got obviously a cover sheet which comes standard, index page, current status. There's our balloon print, just identifying those features that are part of this partial FAI. I've got my engineering change note that is ballooned up, and now I've got my form 1 partial FAI, form 3, just identifying those requirements that are needed, I included that just to show you that it can be output as well, and that becomes the PDF. So that's Visual Fair and its use of the drawing replacement tool, analysing the drawing in terms of revision change, and then the use of the engineering change note and marking that up, and potentially a new form that allows you to analyse it as well. But something we're working on, and that's, we recognise that out there's the use of assemblies in organisations, and it would be nice to understand how we know what FAIs exist at what revision, and whether there is a change in revision in a part that constitutes that a new first article inspection report has to take place. And that all forms part of our advanced repository. This is in development at the moment, but it does form part of our enterprise license on the back of SQL. So I'm going to my advanced repository. Now I've got a tree-like structure and I've got a catalogue, because what we want to do is have one existence of a part, and that becomes a catalogue. So there you can see that I've got a bolt assembly that is at a unique catalogue revision 1. The bolt, the washer and the nut are all at a unique catalogue revision of 1. The actual part revision levels that there I've got identified as A, B and C. But in the tree I could have multiple occurrences of a bolt, washer and nut of those exact parts. They could be in a number of assemblies, but I don't want fairs existing or having to create a fair each time. I just want one master. So this advanced repository allows us to have that view, and the catalogue being the master FAI that exists. So let's consider this. I'm going to go to my catalogue and I'm going to do a new bolt assembly. So I choose it and I say add that part to the tree. So there it is, it's a bolt assembly. But I want to bring in my assembly. So if I run my advanced bill of material import app, now just bear in mind this application itself can work with any output from your ERP system, SAP for one. Here you're going to see me use a parser that we've written for GE. So here I will locate a simple file, the file being an LIS file that they generate from their ERP system, and we're going to pull in a bolt assembly at revision B. So that pulls in the assembly, again just from the file. The file was exported and created from the ERP system, but straight away look, it's identifying to me that this nut is at a new revision, because on the basis of it looking to that catalogue, it knows that A and B already exist but D doesn't, so it's identifying it as a new revision. Let's just import that into the tree. When you import the assembly, you're going to get some visual representation now of that assembly. So it's saying, look, it's gone red. Red to me, knowing the software, is indicating that a new FAI is required for that nut. And you'll see that in the catalogue that the nut has gone from a revision 1 in the catalogue to a revision 2. There are 2 occurrences now of that nut, 2 existences of an FAI. Once obviously I've created one for the revision 2, which is at revision D. But what about the bolt assembly? Well, the bolt assembly itself is highlighted in red, and that is indicating to me as a user that it's a potential candidate for a refair. So you've now got a choice to make. Do you do a new fair or a refair on that assembly because this nut has changed in revision? And if the answer is yes, and we'll just give a changelog comment because we've got revision B not. You will see now that in my catalogue I've got two bolt assemblies. They are both different, and that is why, on the basis of bringing in that assembly, that the nut changed in revision. I've got two instances of the nut, and by confirming that yes, I wanted a new bolt assembly FAI doing, I've now got that two occurrences of the bolt assembly. So again, this is a very new and recent development. GE in Bishop's Cleeve, Cheltenham are actually running with it, but that is just a flavour now for a more advanced repository, a key tool in identifying revision changes to parts that exist in an assembly and whether there is a need for a first article inspection report based on the detail part, and if the detail part within it has changed, it will flag up then at the top level assembly a potential candidate for doing that first article inspection report. So just to conclude there, I was using a tool called Visual Fair for the drawing change comparison tool. Are there any takeaways? Hopefully the PFMEA work as a team, not as an individual. As I mentioned, team members have all got knowledge of their processes that take place. They're aware of the risks. They can give you feedback. Use them and walk the process, because it's not until you actually walk it that you'll identify certain risks. You know, you might see your cleaning operation located right next to your dirtiest operation, like hand grinding, whatever, but unless you see it, you wouldn't know it. Yes, may come across as common sense, but you're not. If you're sat at a desk in your PC, you wouldn't necessarily know where those two processes take place. So the risks there of contamination would be quite high. So always think about walking the process, getting a team together, involving that team to generate the PFMEA. And then for the revision change, we've covered the drawing comparison tool there within Visual Fair. I then moved on to the approach to include and reference to engineering change notes, drawings change notes, how you can mark them up and include them in the FAI. And then finally, within our advanced assembly, there I identified managing change of the assembly. So I'd like to thank you all for obviously registering your interest in the webinar. I appreciate you couldn't make it on the 14th. Hopefully you've found this of some use and benefit. Again, if you want to know more information, remember that email address app-sales@ipisolutions.co.uk. We can have a one-on-one with you, a more detailed demonstration of more tools if you like, or you just may want to know more information. And then we've got the common interaction there of Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn and YouTube. So once again, thank you very much for attending, and we will have another webinar hopefully during March, maybe early April, the details of which will all be sent out in a newsletter. And if you want to attend, then look forward to having another webinar with you, whether it's myself or a colleague. We will see. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you. Oh dear. That didn't go as well as the first one.